Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast with Kelly Bennett. I am a New York City based brand strategist and advisor who loves talking with founders about their story behind their brands. Today, Jess, the founder of Whiny Baby, is on, and I've been so looking forward to this conversation because I think she is building one of the coolest brands right now on the market, especially in the wine space that I think has a lot of opportunity, especially for Gen Z and millennials, to have their own interpretation of wine. So, Jess, thank you so much for coming on.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me. I've been so looking forward to this and excited to chat more about Whiny Baby.
Awesome. So, to kick things off, I always love to ask, what is the story behind your brand?
Yes. Okay. So this all started for me in March of 2020. I was living in Los Angeles and I was actually working in media and production for Red Bull. So
Oh,
I
interesting.
think, yeah, anybody who like looks at Whiny Baby's marketing, knowing that now, you can probably see a nod to, I mean, in my opinion, Red Bull is the greatest marketer of our generation. They've taken a drink that, not everyone even likes and have created an entire lifestyle brand around it. And I learned so much from them. Guerrilla marketing is like in
Right.
their DNA. And so I had no previous, connections to wine, no real interest in wine. I was 22 at the time. And so I had a date with a guy and all the restaurants in LA were closed. He was a little bit older, not a lot of it. I mean, I don't know how you define a lot older. He was like 10 years older. So I'm
Okay.
like, I'm barely legal drinking. Definitely wine was not what me and my friends were drinking. We were drinking like vodka sodas when we're out.
Right.
And wine is, mysterious and sophisticated. And I knew he was really into wine. He had told me that. And he said, hey, why don't you come over? I'll cook for you. You bring a bottle of wine. So I went to like all the trendy grocery stores and I remember staring at the shelf being like, what the heck do I buy? What is a varietal? I own a wine brand and I still am learning the varietals. It's confusing and it's overwhelming. And I walked out that day truly going, I'm going to start a wine brand. There's a need in this space. Like, I think you always wonder, am I going to grow up and be like, I want to be a founder? Like, it's in my DNA. I
Right.
never thought that. I was not like seeking out my opportunity to create something. It genuinely just hit me like there's a need in this space. And I think that I understand Gen Z and I think that I could really create something special. So that's when it all began. I walked out of the store that day and I went, I want to name it Whiny Baby. That's iconic. I was lucky
So
enough it
good.
wasn't taken. And it totally fits in with like Gen Z and, our emotional reputation. So there's that side of the story. But then I always like to say there's kind of like two sides to a founder story. Everyone has ideas, but then there's the side of the story that makes you actually go for it.
Right.
And so for me, it was about a year later, I had the idea, I piddled around online, realized that starting a wine brand is next to impossible, so hard to do. And I just kind of like, not gave up on it, but just didn't actively pursue it. And sadly, during 2021, a loved one of mine passed away. And it was during that time that family and friends came into town. We gathered around the table and, my mom was grieving. And somehow every night, through the pain and everything, we'd end up laughing and sharing stories. And, the one kind of thing that brought everyone together was food and wine. And so
Right.
that was my bigger why that made me actually go for it.
What a beautiful story, and that very much resonates with me as well. When I was in 2020, the year of 2020, when we all,
Yes.
like, were reshifting all the things in our lives, it took a loss of a loved one also
Yeah.
to be like, "What do I really wanna do, and what really lights me up?" Because you realize,
Yeah.
like, life is short, and if you have this feeling, you gotta go with it. So I
Exactly.
I I very much resonate with that. So you have this idea, you now feel that feeling of like, shit, now I gotta really do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta figure this out.
Exactly.
What did you want to do different in the wine space? I know you've touched upon it and your branding is so brilliant, but I would love to hear like what did you want to bring to the table, so to speak?
Yeah, I actually have all my original because it really wasn't that long ago. Like everything has happened very fast for me. It's not lost on me that it's happened abnormally fast, but I think I've been really strategic in how I've gone about things. I've
Yes.
also gotten very lucky, so there's a little bit of both there. But I have my original Canva designs where it's like, I need like a Canva sponsorship. I mean, I think everyone, like every founder loves Canva, but for me,
Yes.
I scoured the internet. I went through like a whole research period where, you have a hunch that there's a need in an industry. But then I think if you have that hunch, you should spend copious amounts of time researching it and confirming that your hunch is correct. So I did that. I looked what was out there. I looked at similar brands that were trying to do what I was trying to do. And I kind of realized that what Whiny Baby could offer was from the point you're looking at a bottle on the shelf, making it easier to grab. So for me, it wasn't what varietal do I want? It was what bottle kind of fits the occasion. So our bottles are labeled with big words versus the varietal. So we've got unwind, OMG, and obsessed. And so for that date, I would have grabbed obsessed. Last week I had a bridal shower, I grabbed OMG. The next kind of part is I was on that date and all I was thinking about was that bottle of wine and how I could imagine the drinking experience. And I think what a lot of brands haven't done is gone, okay, I have this product. How are people actually consuming it? And while they're consuming it, how can I enhance it? And so for me, it was wine is you're sitting together, you're connecting, you're putting your phone down. And sometimes people need a little help in creating conversation, sparking that connection. So underneath each bottle cap, my original batch was corks, but we still stayed true to that. We have conversation starters. So every bottle's different, everything from what's the story of your first kiss to what's a TV show you're watching. And then lastly, it was, okay, once they've finished consuming the product, what are they walking away with? How are they going to remember it? And for me, it was wine creates these memories, good, bad, everything in between. I think that we have a generation, thankfully, that's reflective and in tune with our emotions. And I don't know about you, I think that there's kind of a lost art of like heirlooms and things to pass down. And so people obviously often keep their wine bottles. And so what I wanted to do was create a way to memorialize what you experienced while consuming Whiny Baby. And so on the back, we have savable labels, which you fill out with the date, the location, and then some memories from the bottle.
I love it. I'm definitely that person who has saved wine bottles and put like plants in it and things like that because it
Totally.
reminds you of a special moment.
Exactly.
So I love also what you just touched upon is those different consumer touch points of making it a differentiating aspect of the brand, but also making it feel really engaging and interactive. And by all of those different moments, you could create so many use cases, I'm sure,
Yes.
that like that's endless for social, for marketing. So that's really smart too, because you could you could keep talking about this forever and
It's the
ever,
gift that
right? Like
keeps on
it's
giving.
great. It's a
Yes.
great like from a marketing perspective, I'm like, oh, that's so smart. Like
It's
there's
the
so many things
best.
you could do with that
Totally.
for days on end. So I okay, so that was your differentiator from the branding, design, different customer touch points. How did you go to market? I would love to hear more of that because you
Oh,
touched upon like how hard it is, but you freaking did it, which
did
again
it.
is
Yeah.
so cool. But could you walk us through of like what did that actually look like?
Yeah. So I think that, as a founder, there's a million different directions you can go. And I kind of viewed it as like a puzzle piece. And so for me, I just kind of wanted to create a proof of concept. I had a fairly, small batch of wine to begin with. So the route that I took was in wine, you can buy shiners, which are pre-bottled and you just stick your label on it. But my labels and my corks needed to be so customized that I couldn't go that route.
Got
So
it.
I basically just called, again, like no connections in the industry, called anyone that would talk to me. And I kind of figured things out as I went. And so I figured out that I think gosh, it's been so long now since I had that license, but I think it's a type 83 license, which gives you the ability to direct to consumer ship in California. Alcohol laws are insane. They vary state by state, as you know.
Yes.
And so that kind of was like perfect for me to start. I live in California, I didn't expect to really sell beyond that for my proof of concept. I then found like a wine broker. Again, in the beginning stages, like you'd be so surprised how many people are happy to just help. I found like a wine broker and he deals with humongous deals. And he was kind of just got what I was trying to do and kind of, was like, hey, let me help you out. Talk to this person. I think they sell, bulk wine. So I purchased some bulk wine, purchased my materials. If you look at our original bottles, they're completely different. The wine is completely different than what we have on the shelf now. I didn't have, beyond picking out the wine, I wasn't part of that actual winemaking process. I bought a finished product. But I knew that it would serve the need for the proof of concept.
Right.
So I figure out how to get those made. I figure out how to store them legally, and then I'm shipping them by myself. So I launched literally just on Instagram, on my website, and then I would ship them myself only in California. So it was like a super small start. We sold out. I was like, okay, I have something here. And if you look at our original bottles, I worked with like label makers that don't typically do wine labels. I just like, I had a very small budget I was working with too. I mean, like very small. I didn't raise money. I just like, borrowed from family and friends and what I had and kind of created this little proof of concept. And it's funny too, because coming from Red Bull, I worked with these huge branding agencies.
Right.
I had all the connections, right? And so of course I reached out and the quotes they were giving me were like $40,000, $50,000, like nothing I could remotely afford. And actually, the girl who did our original branding, I found her on Instagram. She totally just like helped me out. And to this day, I've gotten to like increase her role as time goes on. And she's now, with the company on a consistent retainer, which is just so special. So
Amazing.
I'm a firm believer in, keeping people. But long story short, I sell out of that. And I was kind of like, okay, I proved that there's this need. I proved my point. I brought the vision to life. And where do I go from here? So called everyone I could, kind of got the same advice, which was either bootstrap, sell what you have, make more, sell what you grow. That was going to take me 10, 20 years to get on major store shelves, like the ones I'm in now, Target, BevMo. And the other route was investors, which, we could talk forever about that, but where I was at, I knew that I could raise $10 million and I wouldn't know what to do with it. Wine operations are so beyond, that was not the route for me. So I kind of in my brain was like, okay, you got the wine industry, you've got these major wine companies who are trying to sell to a consumer that they don't understand. I've got the product, I've got the consumer, they've got the infrastructure. So I kind of created this like strategic partnership that I made up in my head. Didn't know if it existed. And I don't know if you know the podcast, How I Built This.
Yes.
Yes. So I heard my now partners, the McBride Sisters, on that podcast and thought, LinkedIn message, DMs, stalked till I got a call with them, had just kind of like an informational call and a lot like dating. It was like, they were just giving me advice, but I was like, I've got one moment here. And I was like, I don't know if you would ever consider a partnership, but that's what I'm looking for. And I believe I have, what you guys are looking for. And fast forward to today, we're in a joint venture. They are now, part owners as well. So we now co-own the company. And they provide mentorship, the wine infrastructure. They allow me to spearhead the innovation and the marketing. I'm obviously on the winemaking team as well and make all those decisions. But for me, it feels like a fairy tale how it all worked out. And I guess the biggest takeaway I could share with people is there's no right or wrong way to do things. And don't be afraid to kind of imagine the right scenario for you and your business to take it to the next step.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think so many people think it has to be so binary. It's either this option or that option, and there's nothing in between. And people get so freaked out. They're like, I don't want to choose the wrong one, right? And then they end up not moving forward to that next step. So I think it's brilliant that you have a partnership. That makes so much sense, so that you could focus on what you do the best. They can focus on what they do the best. And together you're able to bring this really cool product to market that's a win for both.
Exactly.
Love when a partnership works out like that.
Oh, same. And, I got very fortunate. I think female founders,
Right.
diverse founders, we had the same mindset. I don't know if it would have worked out as beautifully as it has with a different partner because, you know, you now have someone co-owning your product and, there's more cooks in the kitchen and opinions. I've been so fortunate that they trust me and trust Whiny Baby. And if anything, they're so funny. They always, I'm going, should we do this? Should we do that? And they turn it back on me because they really believe that I need to go with my gut. And they believe in keeping the authenticity of it. And the last thing that I ever want to happen is I think when companies grow, they get kind of watered down. Whiny
Yes.
Baby's still very grassroots in a lot of ways. It's me and my best friend Giovanna works for the company full time as well. And the marketing is really me and her kind of just spearheading it. And so I think that Whiny Baby is still such a new company. Although we have this amazing partnership, we still operate very much, grassroots. And I think that's important to keeping the character and the authenticity.
Absolutely. And I think you and your best friend do a great job as far as telling the story, bringing people really behind the scenes. I mean, I know
Yeah.
that you change office spaces, you're launching a new podcast, and also that you're on Food
Yeah.
Stars, which is so exciting. And when your bestie took over social when you were away filming, like that was really
So
fun. I'm like, what
funny.
the hell are they doing?
I know.
But
I
it
know.
felt really fun and like, okay, cool. I remember genuinely being like, where is Jess? Like
Yes.
I am so curious
And I was
what it
filming
was all
Gordon
about.
Ramsay's Food Stars. I know, it's so
So
crazy.
cool.
I think even I'm still guilty of it today. I try to, if there's one thing I regret, it's not sharing the behind the scenes earlier. When I launched it on my own, I kept it a secret while I developed it. And then I launched it. And I think everyone's guilty of this. I wanted it to look professional and legit and polished, but I think there's value in that. I wouldn't have gotten the meetings I got if it didn't look polished and amazing.
Right.
But at the same time, Gen Z and these new consumers are looking for real behind the scenes, like I said, I don't want Whiny Baby to look like it's owned by one of these major companies. It's owned by me, a Gen Zer trying to figure it out. And that's true. And so I still to this day, I like to present things like polished. And it's funny on, Gordon Ramsay's Food Stars, which is airing now. Watch it on Fox, next day
Yes.
Hulu. It's on Fox 9 p.m. both coasts on Wednesdays. So we're filming this right now on a Wednesday as we're talking. So there's an episode 2 is tonight, which is so exciting. But even on that show, Gordon and Lisa Vanderpump's on it as well. I'm on Team Lisa.
So
They would
cool.
they would continue to say to me, you'll see it on the show. They're like, you're polished, which is so great, but we want to see more of you, which was frustrating because I think I'm a very authentic person and try to stay really true to myself. But it's going back to that balance of being polished and put together, but also being vulnerable and going, I moved back in with my mom at 26 years old so that I could, run Whiny Baby. We, moved out of that office space for not necessarily positive reasons. There's still ups and downs, and I'm guilty, like everyone, of sometimes only wanting to show the ups. But I think it's
Totally.
so important to also show the downs for people who are wanting to start their own, company as well.
I appreciate you saying that because it's something that over the years I too have, put so much pressure on myself to only share the good. But I will say I was head of brand and a business partner of a restaurant, and this was over 8 years ago. That like Instagram was just like really becoming a thing, but I did show the building of that business, and it was my first hot take of like, okay,
You were ahead of your time.
we're really gonna show from like putting in the floors to
Yeah.
like curating the art and who we're working with and having people vote and all that stuff. And that momentum literally launched the whole business
Yeah, because
and
people feel
kept that.
connected. Yeah, they feel part of the story, and not
Yes,
just feel it. We believe that our community is actually part of the story. We let them pick out label
totally.
designs and flavor profiles. So yeah, we're in a totally new era of brand strategy and development. And I mean, the fact that you were doing that 8 years ago is so beyond ahead of the times.
Well, it was funny too, because when anybody asked when is the restaurant going to open, I would say join the email list. And that was like my
So smart.
go-to. And then the first day of opening, we only sent the invite to our email list and we like filled up the restaurant. But everyone was like, how'd you get in? But it was like, oh, you've been following along. And again, this was a long time ago. I had zero marketing dollars. I only had my phone. And at time, it wasn't even like a cool, super cool
Right.
iPhone, but it was like so grassroots. And I remember thinking, okay, this is something. And no
Yeah.
matter over the years, I've been working online social building brands for 15 years.
Mhm.
The tried and true is really that storytelling. And
Yeah.
I know we could all be so critical of ourselves, but I think you're doing it brilliantly. Like to
Thank
me,
you.
that's what really stood out. And having you on the podcast, I think you've been doing such a great job that I'm like, I want to know more because
Yeah.
you personally and your brand, like you're really great at telling the story.
Well, thank you so
You're
much. And
welcome.
I think that's what was so exciting about the show when they first reached out for me and Whiny Baby to be on it. I didn't want to do it because it's reality TV. So much could go wrong. You know,
Right.
I'd been reached out to by Shark Tank and things like that. A little what people don't know often is to go on something like Shark Tank, you do have to give up equity. And even just to
Right
go
off the
on it
bat.
right off
Wow.
the bat.
I
And
didn't know that.
so yeah. And so with this show, you weren't giving up any equity. And what I think is actually exciting, and you'll see it as you watch the episodes go on, it's longer format storytelling. It's more than just the pitch. So the first episode was the pitch to either get on Gordon or Lisa's team, but now it's more like The Apprentice, where each
Got it.
episode is a different challenge, a different business challenge, whether profitability or branding or sales or marketing or whatever. And you really get to, I think that I know myself, and we're all guilty of portraying something on social media, but I think when you have a conversation with me, when you get to know the brand, I think you get me more, you get the brand more, and that you get, I'm just a regular, girl who's trying
Yes.
to figure it out just like everyone else. And so that's what's been really exciting about the show is I think it's an opportunity for the nation to be introduced to Whiny Baby, but also my story and relate to it. I mean, it's really crazy. You can walk into Target or Bevmo in select states and see Whiny Baby on store shelves, and it's like it's insane. It's
That's so cool.
insane. Yeah.
Like that was literally an idea in your head, and now people could shop it at some really
It
great Targets around the
No, it
country.
doesn't
Like
feel real. Like I was
that's
just like
cool.
in my apartment, had an idea, mocked it up on Canva, LinkedIn stalked people. It's just like it's the Gen Z dream, I think.
I
So
love it. I love it so much. So, what is the vision that you have for Whiny Baby? Because I know that this is also only the beginning, just
yes.
getting a really genuine feel of you and your passion, your vision,
Mhm.
your skill sets, what you
Yeah.
bring to the table as a founder. I would love to hear like what is your vision for the brand?
So many things. There's so many routes that Whiny Baby could go. Right now, we have just like what I like to call the perfect starter packs. We have three blends: a red blend, a white blend, a rosé blend. What's cool about it is, if you like the red blend, it's predominantly Zinfandel with a little bit of Merlot, and there's an opportunity there to educate people on varietals and kind of grow with them, right? So let's
Right.
say we eventually come out with a Zinfandel, and the white is predominantly Riesling. So it's kind of an opportunity we like to call it gateway wine, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I like Whiny Baby. These blends are so easy to drink. Now I'm gonna, explore. So we could go that route. But if I'm being totally honest, my real passion is connection and bringing people together. I'm so passionate about wine, but the heart of Whiny Baby is, Gen Z is the loneliest generation. All of us, our lives changed, especially socially with the pandemic. I deal with loneliness. I work remote a lot of the time. Being a founder is lonely, as you know.
Mhm.
And I'm really passionate about bringing people together more in this concept of like a third place, right? We don't have, it used to be like the third place was, school and work and church and whatever, a book club, but we've kind of lost these touch points. So I don't know what that third place is for our generation. I think that's why we're seeing a lot of social clubs pop up, but
Yep.
there's a million different ways I could take Whiny Baby. I'm passionate about spirits. You'll see on the show some new product development, which is super cool.
So excited.
So I'm not quite sure. All I do know is I plan to continue to make Whiny Baby a lifestyle brand that every single product innovates and reimagines ways that we can connect people. And we will just have to see what's next.
I'm so excited to see what next.
Yes,
So,
same.
yeah, while you're in the trenches of it, like, me
You and
too.
me both.
Me
Yeah.
too. What advice would you give a founder who's maybe in those early stages of having the idea, kind of milling it over, doing the research, starting to take the next steps of like being on Canva and putting some ideas on the board? Like, what advice would you give them in those early days that you wish maybe
Yeah.
you knew, or something you learned along the way that maybe you wish you knew earlier? I'd love
Yeah.
to hear that aspect.
I would say one, kind of like what we've already talked about, don't be afraid. Things don't need to be perfect to start sharing. Start sharing now. You're going to look back and be like, wow, I could have started getting traction a year ago if things can change, and that's okay. You don't need to have the most perfect products out there. And also, you don't need to be afraid of competition. Like, only you have the concept, and there's always going to be similar brands, but you make your brand. Don't even think twice about that. Secondly, I would say, again, what we've already talked about, don't be afraid to reimagine your own playbook for business. I didn't go to business school. I'm a college dropout. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm Googling these terms, like I'm learning as I go too. And, research while my friends were out partying. I was at home on a Friday night with a glass of wine, with a binder, printing stuff out, highlighting, research what is happening out in the landscape and pave your own path. And then lastly, I think you are amazing at this. People are so visual. And if you can be the most organized and proof of concept person, everyone who knows me calls me like the queen of decks. And it's because in those early meetings, like with the McBride sisters and everything, I would build these insane decks. I still do, because I'm still pitching to people and talking to new people all the time, and buyers and stores and stuff.
Right.
But you have to materialize what's in your brain in order for people to buy in. I learned that back at Red Bull. If I wanted to be the producer across a big project, I would make a deck showing exactly what I was going to do. I'd bind it and I'd leave it on the executives' desks, and it worked. They'd be like, okay, you get it, So it's like,
Yes.
go the extra mile, prove your point, visualize it. Because if you don't go the extra mile, someone else will, but you'd be surprised how many people just don't.
Right.
Yeah, it's annoying to sit and make a deck that's going to take, 3-4 days. But when you're sitting there and they're actually, only you know what's going on in your head. And so it's so important to materialize that when you're trying to get people to buy into your vision. You're so good with that. Like, your stuff is so beautiful and crisp. It's like,
Oh, thank you.
you just glance at it and you're like, she's legit. I can just tell because it's so beautifully well done,
Thank you. And I will give a shout out to House of Win. She is a designer I work with often, and she has really upped my game on my visuals. So I have to
She's
give
killed
Izzy
it.
a big shout out, and she works with a lot of my clients. But I totally agree with you. It's materializing what's in your head. And as a brand strategist, that's essentially what I do for founders, is helping them get it out of their head and what they're working on articulating, but putting it
Yes.
all in its place.
That is the
And
biggest
then
skill set. Yeah.
and that's what I'm obsessed with. And then knowing what to show depending on what you're pitching and who you're pitching to.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think you'll agree with this. Founders are such creatives and visionaries. We're often not the right people to always be running every aspect of your company. That's a huge learning. You can be the
Right.
founder and maybe should not be the CEO. I'm still learning these things as I go. But if you have to have the skill set. It's not enough to just be the creative and the visionary. If you don't have the skill set to materialize it and actually bring things to life, then you just have an idea. So the difference is
Totally.
people who can actually materialize it. And step one, I would say, is putting what's up there, you know, on a paper so that other people can get it too.
Absolutely. And the other thing I would add to that is finding the right partners or advisors, team
Yes.
members. Like you said, you're a designer, freelance, but now is on retainer, like finding the right people to fill in those gaps because
Yeah.
we literally can't do it all by ourselves. I used to have
No.
that pressure on myself, learn that the hard way of burnout
I don't want to
hardcore.
do it on my
No,
own.
and
Yes.
now I realize I'm like, no, like
No, I
it's
think
so
we're
much better.
recovering from the girl boss era. You
Yes.
know, nothing against you. That term just like is not my thing. I think it's because it's this era, which I think women, especially, you know, we're just doing the best we can, you know, still to this day, we are often one of the only, you know, we're in boardrooms full of men, you know, so we're just trying to, you know, pave this new way and find our spots. But in that, I think it has created this kind of like competitive nature and, you know, I have to do it all. I can't have a personal life. I say this on the show the whole time. I don't really subscribe to that. Like, I think it's a millennial way of thinking of like, I'm like, whether you're a girl boss or a guy boss or a they boss, whatever it is, right? It's like I have no personal life, and I don't subscribe to that. I think that you can have a healthy balance of everything. You can't. It's not like I think the era of like the glorified. Yes, I'm the face of my company, but the era of the like glorified founder, like I think we're over that. It takes a
Yes.
team. It takes a village. I am like I have my skill sets and I need 80 million other people's skill sets to make this happen, you know?
1,000%. And as an older millennial, I I have seen the trenches of that
Yes.
pressure.
Like kind of toxic. It's very toxic.
It could be so toxic. And again, I kind of was riding that wave and put this immense pressure. But then over time, seeing some realness come out of like, oh shit, that was really not even the picture. So I
Right.
really
You're
personally love
recovering.
Gen Z because I'm like, they are coming out of the gate. They are who they are. They have normal lives or whatever that looks
Yes.
like for them. And for me, it's been so refreshing. And I always say, like, I love Gen Z, and I'm always looking at brands that you all are starting because I think you all have a much better hot take on what it means to show up and be a whole person and not feel like it has to be either you're an entrepreneur or you're just a regular whatever person, which
Yes.
is fine, or you work a 9 to 5. You could do both.
100%. I'm happy you said. First of all,
Yes.
we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our elder millennials.
Yeah,
You know, I think each generation we're refining and
totally.
refining. And
Totally.
what's the next one? It's like Gen.
Alpha.
Like I don't even
No.
want to know what they're going to bring to the
And they're
table.
really cool too. My girlfriend has
Beyond.
2 kids who are Gen Alpha, and they have, like, hot takes on stuff, and I'm always like, "Tell me your take on this," and I have them look at products and taste stuffs for me. They're like
Totally.
my 2 little market researchers, but their perspective of things is really cool, so
Is
I'm
different
all for
too.
it. I'm
Yeah,
all for it.
I do think one thing I think that needs to be continued on and passed down is work ethic. I think that
Yes.
that is, of course, we need like healthy work-life balance. But at the same time, I do think that like that gets mixed in with, you know, not laziness, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
I
as
do.
much as I'm like, I need, you know, balance, you know, there's a lot of sacrifice to go on this journey. And I don't think that's changing for any generation. Like, hard
Right.
work is not going anywhere.
Right.
I think a healthier mindset is definitely entering the picture. And I loved what you
Yeah.
said about identity. I think it was like generations before, this had to be your whole identity. And as much as I am, you know, a founder and you know, want to continue to do this. I want to have a family and I want to, you know, these are
Right.
things that I see in my near future and you can have it all. You can do both. And I don't think you, like you said, I don't think you need to pick one identity for yourself anymore, which is so exciting.
Well, I love you saying that because it took me a really long time to recognize that. So the fact that you know that now, good for
Still learning
you.
it. I'm in
Good for
therapy like
you.
weekly. So these are things we're all still actively
This is
learning, but
awesome. Well, Jess, I literally could talk to you for
yes.
hours. You are awesome and so refreshing, and I loved our whole conversation. But there's one question I still have to ask is where can people shop Whiny Baby?
Yes. So please, please, please go out and buy Whiny Baby and take your pictures watching Food Stars with it.
Yes.
We like to do a little wine and watch weekly, but We're currently on whinybaby.com, available in every state that wine legally ships. And for now, we are in store shelves in California, Washington, Arizona, and Florida, Target, Bevmo, GoPuff, Total Wine. So it's a mixed bag right now, but the easiest way is to go to our store locator, look it up there, or head to our Instagram. We have it pinned at the very top, exactly where you can buy it. And I can't reveal yet, but very soon we are announcing a lot more states that we're going to be in. So I'm so excited that more states are going to finally shop
So
Whiny Baby.
cool.
So
So
thank you so
cool.
much. I mean, same. I could talk to you for hours, and I look forward to keeping in touch. And this has
Yes.
been so fun.
Absolutely. Well, Jess, thank you again. Everyone, go get your bottle and bottles of Whiny Baby and support an emerging brand. And thank you again, Jess. And I'll see everyone on the next episode. Bye.